the Watchdog News Network.
Well, Hillsboro, here we go again. This time, the questions are getting bigger. This is not just about a council member owning more than one house. This is about residency. This is about tax exemptions. This is about public office eligibility. This is about private financial relationships between city-connected people. And now, this is also about whether a sitting public official used her position, or at least the appearance of her position, to pressure a citizen and vendor after a city council dispute involving the Hillsboro Farmers Market. At the center of this is Hillsboro Councilmember and Mayor Pro Tem Leann Richmond, her husband Andrew Richmond, Delwin Hinkle, and the new Highway 22 property. So let's walk through the timeline. On April 2nd, 2026, Andrew and Leann Richmond signed residential homestead exemption paperwork for their Corsicana home in Hillsboro. That is important because a homestead exemption is not just some casual piece of paper. It is a government tax document. It is tied to a property being claimed as a resident's homestead. In plain language, the paperwork points to the Corsicana property as the resident's homestead. But later, in my video at the Highway 22 property, Andrew Richmond allegedly stated that he lived at the new property.
Doesn't matter what's on it. It's matter where you actually reside.
I live here.
Read the statute. No.
And my address.
You
is
and
there.
her. You
I
and
do
her.
not live here.
Everything's out of your house over there.
How do you
Except
know
for-
that?
Oh, because
So
people.
now the obvious question is this. Which one is true? Was it the Corsicana property truly the principal residence? Or was the Corsicana property being kept active on paper while the Richmonds were already living at and moving into or transitioning to the Highway 22 property? And let me be very clear. This is not about whether someone can own more than one home. Nobody is saying it's illegal to own two properties. That's crazy. This issue is about domicile. This issue is where you actually live, where you sleep, where your real home is, where your life is centered, where you intend to return at the end of the day. That matters because Leann Richmond was not just any private citizen. She was sitting on the Hillsboro City Council. She was Mayor Pro Tem. She was voting on city business, city policies, city spending, taxes, water rates, development issues, and matters affecting the citizens of Hillsboro. So if she no longer lived where she was required to live, then the citizens have a right to know whether she was still legally qualified to sit in that seat. Now move forward to April 20th of 26. County deed records show Andrew K. Richmond and Leann Q. Richmond purchased the Highway 22 property from Delwin R. Hinkle. The property deed lists Delwin Hinkle as the grantor and Andrew and Leann Richmond as the grantees. But the deed shows something even more interesting. This transaction involved a $500,000 note payable to Delwin Hinkle. So this was not just a simple property sale where everybody walks away. This appears to involve a major private financial relationship between the Richmonds and Delwin Hinkle. And that matters because Delwin Hinkle is connected to the Hillsboro Main Street Board. So now the public has a legitimate ethics question. Why is a sitting council member and Mayor Pro Tem entering into a major private real estate transaction with a Main Street Board member? Was any conflict disclosed? Was any conflict affidavit filed? Did either of them abstain from anything involving Main Street, city boards, city support, city funding, city events, vendor rules, farmers market issues, or anything else where this private financial relationship could matter? Because public trust requires transparency, right? And when a public official has a private financial relationship with someone connected to a city-affiliated board, citizens have every right to ask whether that relationship affected public business. So now let's go to June 2nd, 2026. That night, Melissa Awtrey spoke during public comments at the Hillsboro City Council meeting. Melissa spoke about the Hillsboro Farmers Market. She talked about how the farmers market has served the community for years. She talked about the local farmers, the local vendors, shoppers, families, SNAP benefits, the Double Up program, and the importance of consistency. She asked the council to grandfather the farmers market from the proposed annual application process. She was not asking to take over downtown. She was not asking for special treatment in the way city officials tried to frame it. She was asking for fairness and consistency for a market that's been serving Hillsboro for 13 years. Then the council moved into discussion about reoccurring market events, the use of city streets, annual applications, deadlines, guidelines, and what the city called fair and equitable access to downtown public spaces. The city kept saying this was about paperwork. They said it was about communication. They said it was about a process. They said it was not intended to shut down the existing farmers market. Yeah, right. But here's where the concern comes in. According to Melissa Awtrey, after the council meeting on June 9th, 2026, at the Main Street board meeting, Delwin Hinkle was talking about the farmers market and allegedly suggesting scrapping the whole application idea and making them apply for a peddler's license instead. Now stop and think about that for a second. Why would a Main Street board member who had just sold property to a council member by the name of Leann Richmond through a transaction involving a $500,000 note allegedly be weighing in on what should happen to the farmers market? And why was Leann Richmond allegedly involved in a back and forth with Melissa over that same issue? Because the next day, June 3rd on 2026, after the council meeting, Leann Richmond sent Melissa Awtrey a Facebook message. The message said, "Melissa, these kinds of posts are not helping your situation. They make people like myself who want to be fair to everyone and strive to do what is best for our city be very disappointed." Let that sink in. These kinds of posts are not helping your situation. Coming from a sitting council member, Mayor Pro Tem, that does not sound like a simple private disagreement. That sounds like pressure. That sounds like a public official telling a citizen that her Facebook post could affect her situation. What situation? Her farmer's market situation? Her vendor situation? Her ability to be treated fairly by the city? Her ability to keep operating downtown without being targeted by applications, permits, peddler license requirements, or new rules? Citizens have the right to speak during public comments. Citizens have the right to criticize government. Vendors have the right to question government rules. Farmers have the right to defend a market that has been serving a community for more than a decade. And no citizen should receive a private message from a public official that makes them feel like speaking out is not helping their situation. That is exactly why this matters. Because when government officials start warning citizens that their posts are not helping their situation, the public should be very concerned. Now let's put the whole picture together. April 2nd, Andrew and Leann Richmond signed homestead exemption paperwork for their Corsicana property. April 20th, Andrew and Leann Richmond purchased the Highway 22 property from Delwin Hinkle with a $500,000 note payable to Hinkle. June 2nd, Melissa Awtrey speaks at City Council asking for fairness for the Hillsboro market. June 3rd, Leann Richmond sends Melissa a Facebook message saying her posts are not helping her situation. Then June 9th, the Main Street board meeting, according to Melissa, Delwin Hinkle allegedly discusses the farmer's market and suggests a peddler license out route. Then days later, the residency and tax exemption issue explodes into public view. And remember, the issue is not whether Leann Richmond can own two homes. The issue is whether the Corsicana property was truly her principal residence or whether the old address was being kept alive on paper while the real home had become the Highway 22 property. The issue is whether the homestead exemption paperwork matched reality. The issue is whether the city actually investigated domicile or whether they just ran damage control. The issue is whether a sitting council member had a private financial relationship with a Main Street board member while market rules and vendor issues were being discussed. The issue is whether Melissa Awtrey was being pressured because she spoke publicly and posted online. And the issue is whether Hillsboro citizens are being told the full truth. So now the public has every right to demand records. Where are the conflict disclosure affidavits? I've already requested them. Where are the forms showing she abstained? Where are the communications between Leann Richmond, Delwin Hinkle, Tiffany Barron, Megan Henderson, Main Street board members, city staff, and anyone else discussing Melissa Awtrey, the farmers market, vendor applications, peddler licenses, permits, enforcement, complaints, or Facebook posts? Did Leann Richmond disclose her private financial relationship with Delwin Hinkle after the property transaction? Did Delwin Hinkle disclose any conflict connected to Leann Richmond? Did either of them participate in or influence any matter involving Main Street, the farmers market, vendors, applications, or city policies? And did anyone use city authority, Main Street influence, private messages, or behind the scenes pressure against a citizen who dared to speak out? Because this is not just about vegetables. This is not just about a farmer's market. This is about government power. This is about whether public officials and city-connected board members were using applications, permits, licenses, private messages, and influence to control citizens who were asking questions. This is about whether a council member with a residency issue and a private financial relationship with a Main Street board member was also involved in pressuring a vendor over a public market dispute. Hillsboro deserves answers. The citizens deserve the paper trail. The records need to be released. And as always, sunlight is the best disinfectant.
Tyranny, corruption, extortion.
Sunlight is the best disinfectant.
BZ Watchdog News Network.